Hello and welcome to this week's video. Today I want to explore something that I think makes the biggest difference between a technically accurate painting and one that really connects with people, capturing personality. I'll show you how understanding your subject's character can influence every painting decision you make, from your brushwork and your choice of colours to your edges and composition. Let's jump straight in. Number 1, why personality should drive painting decisions. I want to start today with something that I think separates a good painting from a really memorable one, and it is not a technical skill. It is something much more fundamental than that. It is understanding the personality of what you are painting and letting that understanding drive every decision you make, from your brushwork to your colour to your edges. Most painters, when they sit down with a reference photo, focus entirely on what they can see. The shapes, the colours, the values, the composition, and all of these things matter enormously. But a reference photo only tells you what something looks like at a single frozen moment in time. It cannot tell you what that subject actually is, its character, its energy, its spirit. And if you only paint what you can see in the photo, that is exactly what you will get. A painting of a moment, technically accurate but missing the thing that makes the subject truly alive. This painting is a perfect example of what I mean. The subject is a cat called Nugget, and before I started painting, the owner told me something that completely changed how I approached the whole painting. She told me that Nugget was wild, unpredictable, the kind of cat that nobody could go near except the people she loved. She would attack without warning, and she had a fierce, untameable energy about her. The moment I heard that, I looked at the reference photo completely differently. The pinned back ears, the tension in the body, the coiled readiness of the pose, all of that suddenly meant something much more than just a cat sitting on a chair. And from that moment, every decision I made in the painting, my brushwork, my colour choices, my edges, was made in service of capturing that personality, rather than just describing what I could see. That is what I want to talk about today, because I think if you paint with personality as your goal, you will make better and more interesting decisions than if you paint with accuracy as your goal. Number 2, reading the reference photo with fresh eyes. So let's talk about what happened when I looked at that reference photo after hearing Nugget's story, because it is a really good illustration of how knowledge changes perception. Before I knew anything about her, I would have looked at that photo and seen a cat on the back of a chair, a nice composition, an interesting pose, all very paintable. But the moment I knew who Nugget actually was, everything in that photo started to mean something different and something more. The ears pinned back. That is not just an interesting physical detail anymore. That is her wild and tameable side. The position on the back of the chair, she's not resting, she's surveying. The tension in the body. Even in a still photograph, you can feel the energy in that pose. She is not relaxed, she's loaded, like something that could move in any direction at any moment. None of that was new information. It was all there in the photo before I heard the story, but without the story I might not have seen it, or I may have passed it by and chosen a different photo. This is why I always encourage people to find out as much as they can about a commissioned subject before they start painting, particularly with animals, because animals have personalities that their owners know intimately and that a reference photo can only hint at. That knowledge is not a distraction from the painting. It is an essential information that will make the painting better, more true and more meaningful to the person who commissioned it. So before you look at your reference photo, ask yourself, what do you actually know about this subject? And then look at the photo again with that knowledge and see what you notice that you didn't notice before. Number 3, brushwork as energy, making strokes visible. So once I understood what this painting needed to be about, the first technical decision I had to make was brushwork. Visible brushstrokes are not unresolved, they are energetic. They carry movement and life in a way that smooth blended paint simply cannot. Think about it this way. A smooth blended surface is static. It sits quietly on the canvas and asks nothing of the viewer. A visible directional brushstroke has energy and intention. It is going somewhere. It is doing something. It is alive. For a painting about a wild, coiled, unpredictable cat, smooth and blended was completely wrong. Every surface in this painting needed to feel like it had energy in it, and that meant making a deliberate decision to keep my brushwork visible and directional throughout. The black chair is where this is most obvious, and I want to talk about that specifically, as it could as easily become a flat, dead, uninteresting area of dark paint. Instead, I painted it with a rich, colourful black, mixed with intention and temperature rather than straight from a tube, and I kept every brushstroke visible and energetic and directional. You'll notice as I go in to rework sections of it, I am very careful to preserve as much of that brushwork I laid down in my first initial attempt. I knew when I laid the first mark I had to be decisive with it and capture that energy in the first go. The result is a chair that feels alive rather than just dark. You can see the energy in the paint, the movement in the strokes, and that energy sets the tone for everything around it. This is something worth thinking about in your own painting. Before you blend, ask yourself whether the energy of a visible brushstroke might actually be serving the painting better than a smooth surface would. Sometimes the most honest mark is the one you leave alone. Number 4, colour and direction. Purple, yellow, and the direction of energy. The background in a painting like this is not just empty space to fill. It is an active participant in the mood and energy of the whole piece. And if the background is passive and neutral while the subject is energetic and alive, the two will feel disconnected. I used a 2-colour effect in the background, a very muted purple and a very muted yellow, both at the same value, so there was no strong contrast between them, just a subtle warm and cool shift across the surface. Purple and yellow are complementaries, opposite each other on the colour wheel, and even in their most muted form they create a gentle visual tension that keeps the background feeling alive, rather than flat and dead. But the colour choice was only part of the decision. The other part was the direction. I painted the background strokes in the same direction as Nugget's pinback ears, and that was completely deliberate. When the brushstrokes in the background are moving in the same direction as the most expressive and telling part of the subject, the whole painting starts to feel unified by that energy. The background is not just sitting behind the cat, it is responding to her, moving with her, amplifying the tension and aggression in her pose. I used a lot of alizarin crimson in this painting, in my chair and in my background. Keeping your colours harmonious throughout will really help unify a painting. Number 5, looseness and edge pulling. The back and the background. The final technical decision I wanted to talk about is how I handled the cat's back and the transition between Nugget and the background. A wild, unpredictable, coiled animal should never have a tight, carefully defined outline all the way around it. That kind of edge says contained, controlled, static. Exactly the opposite of everything this painting is trying to communicate. So I made a very deliberate decision to be loose with the back of the cat and to pull edges into the background rather than define them. The result is a boundary that is soft, broken and alive. You can see the fur dissolving into the space around it, which gives the cat a sense of movement and energy that a hard defined edge would completely kill. However, notice around her head I have a much more obvious edge. This is because I want the viewer to focus on her expression, wide eyes and pinback ears. These decisions do something really important for the mood of the painting. It makes Nugget feel dangerous in the best possible way. Pulling edges is not the same as blending. Blending smooths and softens. Pulling edges preserves the energy of the stroke while allowing one area to dissolve into another. It is a subtle but important distinction, and it is what keeps this painting feeling wild and alive rather than just soft and unfocused. Number 6, the bigger lesson. Paint what you know, not just what you see. So let's finish with the bigger lesson sitting underneath everything we have talked about today, because I think it is one of the most valuable things I can share as someone who paints a lot of commissions. A reference photo is a starting point. It shows you what something looks like at a single frozen moment, but it cannot show you what the subject actually is, what its energy is, what its character is, what makes it unlike any other cat or dog or person you have ever painted. That information lives with the people who know the subject. And if you are painting a commission, those people are your clients. Ask them about their animal before you start. Ask them what the personality is like, what makes it funny or difficult or lovable or fierce. Nugget is a perfect example. Without her story, I would have painted a technically competent cat on a chair. With her story, I painted something that her owner recognised immediately, not just as a likeness, but as a truth about who Nugget actually is. Every subject you paint has a personality, a history, an energy that the reference photo is only hinting at. Your job as a painter is to find that thing, paint what you know, not just what you see, and your paintings will have a life and a truth in them that pure technical accuracy can never achieve. I hope you have enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. You can find lesson opportunities on my website sarahhallidayart.com and also examples of my work. Thank you for watching and see you next week.